I've read a lot of books, hundreds, thousands, and most of them regurgitate the same information over and over again, but these 20 will actually make an impact. 1. Acres of Diamonds by Russell Conwell. This one's about a farmer who sold his farm so that he could travel across the globe in search of diamonds. Did he ever find any? Nope. What ended up happening was he ran out of money and he tossed himself in the river and he drowned. Years later, a priest came by the farm that was sold and noticed a shiny looking rock sitting on the mantelpiece. And he ended up asking the new owner where he found this rock, and the new owner told him that it was down by the river. They both strolled over, and guess what? Not only was the river full of diamonds, it was in fact one of the largest diamond mines in history. The moral of the story? Stop looking for opportunities elsewhere because they're probably right in front of you. 2. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This one's all about listening to your heart, and I'm aware that sounds kind of cringy, but that's okay. I think that when most of us are young, we listen to our hearts, we follow our passions, we learn, we discover. As we get older though, as we start to fall into a certain routine, whether it be going to school, going to university, having kids, wherever it may be, we stop listening to that voice. And why do we do that? Because we're scared of what might happen. What this book teaches you, that if you want to live that life that you've always dreamed of, you need to start listening to that voice again. 3. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. If you ever felt like your life was hopeless, your life was purposeless, give this one a read. This man, Viktor Frankl, managed to survive 3 years in 4 different Nazi concentration camps. He lost his job, he lost his family, he lost his freedom. He didn't know when his next meal would be. He didn't know if he'd have clothes to wear in the freezing snow. And he didn't know if today would be his last. But he never lost hope because he never lost purpose. In fact, while he was in prison, he managed to write on scrap pieces of paper a new approach to psychology that doubles down as a philosophy for life. Human beings' primary drive isn't pleasure, but meaning. If another prisoner lost hope, if another prisoner lost purpose, they would be dead within the coming days. But on the other hand, if a prisoner had purpose, if they had a meaning for life, they would live to see another day. 4. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This book gets you inside the mind of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who was born around 100 AD, and he didn't write to inspire others, but to overcome his own struggles. And in the face of constant war, plagues, betrayal, there was a lot going on back in this time. His advice to himself was simple: focus on what you can control and ignore the rest. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. I first heard about this book through the self-help legend Jim Rohn. Now, the first time that I read this book, I didn't quite get it, but the second time that I read it, it clicked. The message of this book is simple. What you think, you become. If you think you can't do something, then you can't. If you think you're not worthy enough, then you aren't. If you think you won't be successful, then you won't. But when you change the way that you think, you'll change your life. 6. The Richest Man in Babylon by George Samuel Clayson. This one's a little bit old. It was written in 1926, but it has some timeless money principles. Control thy expenditures. Don't buy dumb shit. Make money multiply. Invest. Own thy own home. If you can, buy, stop renting. Increase thy ability to earn. Never stop learning. And there's a whole bunch more, but there's one thing that really stood out to me, and that's don't take advice from people who haven't been where you want to be. Otherwise, you'll end up where they are. 7. Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. If you ever wondered what Stoicism is all about, give this one a read, because right here is a collection of 124 letters from Seneca to his friend Lucius, who was an official in ancient Rome, on teaching him how to be a better Stoic. And Seneca, for those of you who are living under a rock, was one of the 3 major Stoics whose work survived. Long story short, if you want to be a good Stoic, you need to live a life of virtue, of wisdom and purpose, instead of being ruled by the passions, by the desires, and all the other things you can't control. 8. How to win friends and influence people. I know that if you want to get further in life, you're only going to get so far by yourself. And in order to realize your dreams, you're going to need a little help along the way. And in order to get help along the way, you're going to need to learn how to win friends and influence people. And guess what this book is all about? 9. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I mean, there's a reason why people like Jim Rohn, like Tony Robbins, like Bob Proctor, like Brian Tracy all swear by this book. You see, wishing for success is actually quite easy, and most of us have probably done it. But unless you turn that wish into a clear burning desire, followed by some deep self-belief with a clear thought out plan, you're probably not going to be successful. And that's what this book is all about, turning your dreams into reality. 10. Mastery by Robert Greene. One of my favorite authors right here. Why? He'll spend like 5 years devouring hundreds of books and then he'll turn it into a masterpiece like this. And I'm sure this won't come as a shock, but this book talks about the journey towards mastery. And what does the journey towards mastery look like? Well, it looks like this. It begins by discovering your life task, your life purpose. After that, you'll enter the apprentice phase, and that's where you need to go out and find a mentor who's going to teach you everything that you wanted to learn about whatever it is you're trying to do. Up next is the creative active phase, and this phase is where you build upon what your mentors taught you. You start to innovate and think outside the box. And then finally, you reach the mastery phase. And one of the things that he really tries to get across in the book is the journey towards mastery requires patience. The journey is going to be more like 5, 10, or 20 years. It's not going to be days or months. 11, change your paradigm, change your life. Your paradigm is the sets of beliefs and habits that make up your subconscious mind. And to put it simply, your paradigm is a program that runs you. Essentially, we have a conscious mind and subconscious mind. And to put it simply, our conscious mind is pretty much the mind that we use when we're focusing on something. And then our subconscious mind is pretty much what's controlling us the rest of the time. So that's about 90% of the time. And your subconscious mind is shaped by your environment, but also your thoughts. So if you tell yourself that you're not worthy enough, if you'll never make it, if you're never going to be successful, what happens with these thoughts is they get lodged into your subconscious mind and then you start to act it out. And then it becomes a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. And to the main point of this book, if you want to change your life, you actually need to change your paradigm. 12, Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. A great follow-up to the last one. One of the great things that Joe says is that your body is putting you in a predictable future based upon what you've been doing in the past. So if you're not in the present moment, you're more than likely running in a program, aka your subconscious mind is in control. So what you need to do is rehearse the life that you want over and over again. Why? Because what it does is it's going to take you out of the predetermined future so that you can start to create the life that you want. Create a new reality, you become supernatural. 13, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. So I remember going to a Tony Robbins event a few years ago, and one of the things that really stood out to me was that the brain can't actually tell the difference between a real threat and an imagined threat. So what happens is you can literally think yourself into fight or flight by a threat that hasn't happened or more than likely will never happen. So how can you stop yourself from jumping to the worst possible outcomes, from stopping yourself from being bothered by all the shit you see online? By building resilience. And one of the great things about the Daily Stoic is it's filled to the brink with exactly that, Stoic principles to help you build resilience. Just pick up the book and turn to the current date and voila, some timeless Stoic wisdom to help you deal with life. 14, Atomic Habits by James Clear. We've all heard of this book, haven't we? It's probably the most easy to understand book on behavior change, creating good habits and breaking bad ones. And since I literally just made a book summary video, here are the 3 main takeaways. Small changes compound over a long period of time. If you get 1% better every day, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better. We don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And the idea here is that we can't rely on ambition or effort alone. What we actually need to do is shape our environment in a way that the change will become inevitable. And finally, habits don't stick unless we change our identity. So it's not enough to just change your behavior, you actually need to change the way that you see yourself in order for a habit to stick. 15, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. So today I was watching this video about multitasking, and one of the things that was said was if you count from 1 to 25, it's going to take you about 25 seconds. And then if you recite the alphabet, it's going to take you probably about 5 seconds, unless that song pops in your head, of course. But if you alternate between the two, 1A, 2B, 3C, all the way through to the end, it's going to take you about 1.5 minutes, so it's a lot longer. And the funny thing is, most people can't even make it towards the end. What I'm saying is that multitasking doesn't actually work. The great thing about this book, it teaches you to focus instead of trying to do everything. And the great thing when you learn to focus, you're going to start to produce some remarkable results. So what is the one thing that's going to get you close towards your goals? What is the one thing that's going to give you more energy? 16, The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. An oldie but a goodie. I remember my brother giving me this book about 11 years ago when I first started my business. Before reading this book, I actually hadn't read a book since high school because I thought that reading's for geeks. But I remember sitting along the coast, along the beach, flipping through pages, page after page, and taking endless notes. Because this right here is one of the most foundational books on business. This book goes through everything: how to write a mission, how to build your organization chart, how to hire the right people, how to develop systems and processes, pretty much everything you need to know how to build a business. 17, Winning the Loser's Game by Charles Ellis. I have 3 passions in life: personal development, building businesses, and investing. And eating gelato is a very close fourth. And this book's all about the third, investing. I often speak to family, to friends, to workmates about investing, and they just tell me that they just don't get it. And I think one of the main reasons that is because there's so much junk out there, and these financial experts make it sound way too difficult. If you ever wanted to get into investing, give this one a read because it gives you everything you need to know about how the markets work, about diversification, about passive investing, active investing, dollar cost averaging, and a whole bunch more. And it might sound like a lot, but this is very easy to read. 18, Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. This book talks about the man who took Apple from his parents' garage to being valued at over $3 trillion. Look, some people love him, and apparently some people hate him because he's a bit of a dick, but there's one thing you can't deny: he built something great. I mean, even though his life was full of ups and downs, he managed to create something so great that his fans were so loyal they couldn't see themselves using any other products. And spoiler alert, I'm one of them. 19, 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So I had a look before, and apparently the divorce rate in Australia is about 34%. So statistically speaking, 1 in 3 marriages are going to end in divorce. And I think a lot of these divorces could have been prevented if people took the time to learn their partner's love language. Because when you understand your partner's love language, you can actively keep things alive. So the book talks about there being 5 love languages. So words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And my love language is time, and if you want to get to know yours, you know what to do. 20. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Covey. If you ever wondered what habits you needed to cultivate to achieve your goals, look no further. Be proactive. Take responsibility for your own life, because whether you like it or not, you are where you are today because of your actions. Begin with the end in mind. This one I love talking about a lot. So create a vision for your life. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to become? What do you want to achieve? Put first things first. Focus on things that are actually going to move the needle the most. Think win-win. Try and find solutions that are both mutually beneficial. Someone doesn't always need to lose in order for you to win. We can all win. Seek first to understand, then be understood. So actively listening to the person and trying to understand from where they're coming from, instead of merely waiting for them to stop so you can have your 2 cents. Synergize, and this one's about collaboration. So when you're working with another person, 1 + 1 doesn't actually equal 2, 1 + 1 actually equals 3 or 5. Sharpen your pencil, and this one's all about keeping your mind and body in check. And if you focus on these 7 habits, you, my friend, will succeed. And there you have it, 20 books that positively impacted my life. Now, if you're ready to step up your life, you're gonna have to work on that lackluster discipline of yours. So here's a video on how to build discipline and actually stay disciplined. I'll see you over there. We got there.